having trouble with some volunteers. They're in the wrong kind of like mood, space, whatever. Who do I talk to if I'm having problems with volunteers? That's under Lindsay Olguin. We do it so that you're getting like the right person, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all getting the right person that deals with that particular, that particular issue. So let's take a moment and go over that list. Okay? So if it's an emergency, don't worry about calling anyone else. I mean, a real emergency, right? Like head
somebody
gashed
just fell
open,
off the ladder and they are screaming.
Yeah, somebody,
Okay.
or they're passed out.
Yeah.
Or they gashed open a leg, an arm, whatever, something that needs stitches.
They got a hammer in their head.
Have had that happen. And
Really?
some things might be 911 and some things might not, right? But you know what a 911 emergency looks like, right?
Yep.
So you call there first. After you call 911, call me. There's my number. So I deal with emergencies. If there's some sort of speaker that doesn't show up or whatever, Anne would call me and I fill in, right? So I'm a backup. And I'm responsible for our staff and things that aren't on here that come up, okay? So Liz is over there.
I'm Liz.
So it says scope of work questions. We're gonna go over the scope of work and what that means. So the stapled packet that I gave you is called the scope of work. We'll go over that in a moment. She will also be transporting ladders. So every site will already have the ladders we believe you need, but as we're going through a volunteer day, sometimes people say, I could really use one more 6-foot ladder. I could really use one more extension ladder. If I had one more extension ladder, we could do X, Y, Z. And so that's where you call Liz. And then it's her job to try to figure out where to get that extension ladder and bring it over. And then if you have issues with volunteers, that's Lindsay. She also takes care of lunch, continental breakfast, that sort of thing. But that you don't have to worry about because that happens outside of this. Evelyn, who's right over here, she will help hopefully lead us in prayer. We haven't asked her yet. She's hopefully going to help lead us in prayer in the mornings and at the end of the day, because we're going to gather as staff also to kind of debrief the day and figure out what we need to deal with for the next day. Hopefully help us set up for lunch, that sort of thing, and volunteers and stuff. Rich Kramer, which isn't here, he is going to be operating an aerial lift. One of the two people operating an articulating boom, basically. So you might end up at a house that part of the scope of work is reserved for an articulating boom, meaning that we don't want anybody on an extension ladder trying to reach something.
Like this house. Like this is a real example.
Oh yeah.
Like we don't want somebody on that roof painting the second floor. A boom will come in.
Okay.
Because the roof we think is stable, but it might not be. Right? We don't want it creating a repair issue where there isn't one right now. But all of that will be marked off in the scope of work.
Okay.
And you will know that it's reserved for someone else to do. And the other thing is there are laws where if you're on a roof, you need to be tied off, right? And so that is a whole other issue. Tamika, who is not here, will help us wrap up projects at the end, so that we have so many projects working at once, and as they wrap up, we'll be picking things up and taking things back to home base and kind of processing things and getting stuff ready for the next houses opening up. Jen Fisher is head of construction. She is leading Jen and Greg are working with a new build. Then Dorla is here. She is leading our registration tent and registration volunteer. Ouch. And if you can help Dorla, I don't know that that's really going to work out. Clean up after.
I figured that anything left after lunch would go back to the restore. And so if she was going back to the restore, she could take the food there.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Look at her thinking it through. Yeah, that's great because then we don't have extra food stuff to deal with. That's awesome. Ann and Lindsay have been meeting with Covenant Healthcare. So she has a list of who the speakers are for different things, orientation, media, coordination, that sort of thing, the chaplains that are coming to pray, or any speakers from Covenant. And then Laura is going around, if anybody has any shortages for paint supplies, yard tools, brush bags, things like that, that's a phone number you call, and she will drop whatever she's doing and take things to wherever you are. Diane, if you need anything from the office,
Yep.
Or things that need to go back to the office, then that's Diane. If we run into any issues, construction issues we can't solve, like, it shouldn't be, because it shouldn't be anything complicated, but there might be something that we just don't know that ends up being like a major construction issue, and Charlie is like our engineer that helps us solve these issues.
Okay.
Okay? So then let's talk about the scope of work, and we're going to use the staple packet that I gave you, because that way we're all working off the same sample. So this is a job that we are going to do on North Michigan. The house orientation that you have here and the garage orientation are real. So side A, B, C, and D, you might see it referred to in the scope of work. Side A is always the front of the house where the address is on. Side B, it goes clockwise, right? So side B is over here, side C is the back, side D is over here. And then you use the same orientation for the garage. So some things to, before we get into the scope of work itself, let's look at the cautionary items. Some things that we thought of are common to all the sites, and then there might be some specifics for a particular house. So more important than anything, safety trumps anything and any work. We do not care how much work gets done as long as safety is being observed, okay? So we do want work to get done, but if it's about hurrying and in any way being unsafe, don't do it, okay? We're gonna talk about ladders and stuff like that and angles in a little while. A lot of it is common sense, right? So the next thing is, so anything that you need for your site or any questions you have, most of it is in your binder. So this is like super important. Don't lose it. You're going to be, you're going to need to read it before you come. 3, and we're going to walk you around the house in a little bit. We need you to have your people stay away about 10 feet away from the power line, okay, coming into the house. And sometimes it might be confusing, because if you don't know a house, you might think the charter cable is the power line and not the power line. So you need to, hopefully we'll mark them with some tape before we come, before you get to the house, so that you can see that. Homeowners, this homeowner in particular does have a little Chihuahua yapper doggy, and we've told them they need to pick up any little landmines all over the yard. If there are still little landmines around the yard, maybe yours has big landmines, you call Liz. She is the landmine addresser. That way it doesn't put you in an awkward position, because she's already talked to them about this and they've agreed to clean things up. But we've also had people step into stuff, not pleasant. So you call Liz. Homeowners are supposed to be helping on the house. They know this. You have some homeowners that have some limitations and can't necessarily, but we will let you know that if that's a homeowner, like your scope will say this homeowner probably cannot because they use a walker or they use a cane and whatever, it'll explain it. And it'll say, but they'll come outside and sit with you and talk with you and get to know you or whatever, or they're having friends come over and help, whatever it is, okay? So these homeowners will come and help. They are older. They don't look older, right?
Yeah, they are all on board to help out, except for the one on Webster. She's older.
Right, okay.
And fragile. So
She's going to bake cookies.
she's going to bake cookies
Her
and
heart's
cakes.
content.
So if you're in that house, wear stretchy pants.
Yeah, you're going to eat.
Thank you.
So, but if your homeowner doesn't come out and it's like, you know, you don't want, they can't be out necessarily 100% of the time. They might need a break, whatever. But if that's not happening, call Liz. So the entire scope of work is in the binder. We're going to go over it. They cannot change their scope of work. They can't add to their scope of work. And we'll let you know what that means. Number 7 is about people need to be wearing hard hats and safety glasses. So basically, yeah, painting, you're like, why do they need to be wearing hard hats for painting? Well, we'll tell you why and we'll explain why, especially when we're doing ladders. So it's super easy for things to drop on people's heads. Some sites, they'll be using hammers because they have to like nail in some siding before they paint, and they don't know that the board is loose until they actually start and so it's super easy to drop a hammer on someone's head, especially if you're working, someone's working above you. So it's just important, important protection. Glasses are a must. It's super easy to get paint in your eyes. And yes, water is an easy fix, but it could be extremely irritating for some people, and there could be allergies, right? So we don't want to take any chances. We want people to leave home with the same body parts and the same senses they had when they arrived. So this is kind of common sense, but if you don't paint all the time, you might not think of it. When you open paint, the paint has been sitting for like a few days. It's not going to sit for very long, but make sure you stir. Stir pretty vigorously to make sure that it's all even throughout. When you break for lunch, wrap your brushes in, there's bags provided for you. There's smaller grocery bags. They're about this big. Wrap them in there so that way they stay wet. Take them out of the sun. So one good place to put them is back in your bin, and take the bin out of the sun, because if not, they'll dry regardless. And then you can use them at the next, the next shift. Next page for me. And then you do this also at the end of the day. Do not throw them away. They will keep just fine for the next day. And then put the supplies back where you found them. For some people, it might mean that we have to pick them up at the end of the day because they might not have a garage, and that's the arrangement that we have with that family, that we're picking up all the ladders and then we're bringing them back. For most people, it'll be that they're in the garage, or that they'll be in the porch or something like that, but you'll have directions before that. So number 10 is, in the bins there's also orange plastic where you can slip the entire paint tray in, and you can seal it, tape it over, because there's actually tape in your containers. That'll keep it wet. So as to the actual scope of work for this house, it says paint, and it's not this house, obviously. It's a house at 1103 North Michigan. It says paint the house. I want you to look at the house, which is the next page, right? So this is the front of the house, which is side A, and it tells you that the body of the house is, the color is Outer Banks. So on that previous page, so one of the things we did not know is the cans, when we get them back from getting tinted, Valspar, which is Sherwin-Williams, donates the paint to us, and we get it tinted at Lowe's. But because it comes to us, Habitat International, in case it was a partnership that we had, it comes to us as this medallion on the outside. It's not the same formula per se that Lowe's gets. So we do not know if it'll have a name on the outside or the number on the outside, but it'll have a color. So we want to make sure that you can tell what Outer Banks looks like and what Fireweed looks like, because we don't want you to have to guess, whoa, we think it's this color that goes on the house, right? That's why the colors are on there for you. So when you look at the house where it says body Outer Banks, that's the beige color. And then the fascia, which is that trim board, is Fireweed. The shutters would also be Fireweed. The shutters should be down by the time that you would get to this house. However, let's say that the house has shutters, and we've talked to the homeowner and said, could you get the shutters down? They've agreed to take it down, but they're not down. So at that point, you probably have to take them down with volunteers, right? There should be screwdrivers in a screwdriver in there, but that might mean you got to call Laura and say, could you please bring us some more screwdrivers? We have to take some shutters down. We were only planning on a screwdriver because we were only taking the numbers off the front of the house, right? But that's like one reason that would happen. You turn to the next page and you have the house number plaque. So really it's the background of the numbers that is fireweed, and the door trim is fireweed. I don't remember the door itself, Liz. But you turn the page, and then again, you get, we try to make it as, like, so that you don't need many questions, right? Like, point to everything. You turn the page, and when you see to the right is the house, it's the back of the house, really, and to the left, that structure is the garage. So the garage, again, the body of the garage is going to be Outer Banks, and the trim is going to be fireweed. The fireweed is pointing to this little fence. It's falling apart, okay? That little fence is falling apart. The owner was like, that's like putting lipstick on a pig, literally. So that's what we're doing because that's what we have right now, right? So that's all we could do. She is getting new shutters and stuff like that, so it wouldn't be these shutters that we're looking at. So now you're on the side B of the house. It has a lot of shutters, and the shutters you see are pretty broken, and there's a side door, right? So those shutters themselves are going to be down, but there would be replacement shutters that would need to be painted. So we have new shutters, but they're not the right color. So they would need the fireweed color, and the house is going to need, to be painted Outer Banks. I do want to draw your attention to the left top part of the picture where it says electric, do not touch. Do you see that section up there? And do you see how broken it is? So that's concerning, right? Because we do not know how much of that electric cord, or I forget what you call the technical term is, how much that casing has exposed electricity. So for this house, we are not painting that fireweed, and we are not painting this fireweed. This side that does not have electricity will be painted Outer Banks. When you paint something red, when you have the body of the house, Outer Banks, and you paint something else fireweed, you're highlighting it, right? You're bringing it out. For this, we want to hide it. We're not going to touch this, so I'm not going to make this side fireweed. So instead, you make this side Outer Banks, because you're gonna leave this just as it is. So you make this Outer Banks and kind of like keep the same color going, and forget the other side because we're not going to touch it. We are going to have the electricity dropped at some point because it's right here. Okay. Oh, this is a lovely picture. It's a picture again of the same thing that you saw before. It's supposed to be a little closer. The garage, Outer Banks, the fence, and the trim. If you go to the next page, it is kind of a cartoonish outline of a house. I took out a lot of descriptions because we didn't need them. But if you're not someone who's familiar with like house parts, we just left some main things, because when we describe things on a house, sometimes people don't know what a soffit is, or they don't necessarily know what fascia is, right? And those are pretty common things that we talk about, or columns, or downspouts, railings, things like that. So we wanted you to have just, some common language that we use. Okay, the next page also just has the soffit, because I didn't have a good picture of a soffit. Do you have any questions so far? No questions. Okay. Questions over there? Are you all like so hot?
I mean, we're looking.
Do you want to see
I
us
feel
over here?
amazing.
Huh?
I feel amazing.
Yeah, we're good. You like
I'm
the
always
sun?
cold though.
What was that?
I'm always cold.
You're always cold. Got it. All right.
You lose 130 pounds of that insulation and
Oh,
you're cold
yeah.
all the
Then we
time.
can't paint.
Absolutely. Laura, are you cooking?
No, I just can't see.
You cannot see. You can turn around.
Why can you
Turn
not
sideways.
Go sit on
Because
the
of
porch.
the sun.
Go
You
sit on
can
the
turn
porch. This is
sideways.
completely shade.
I'm fine.
Sit like you
All right.
want to stand
money.
out.
George doesn't want to stand out. All right.
You're gonna stand.
So in your notebook, under scope of work, you might already have one that has some.
If not, I have one of those.
You might have one that already has some pictures in it. And it might not be the entire scope of work because you're going to have the scope of work also written out, like you have it in our,
Nope.
in the
I have
handout.
one. If you'd like your own, I'll go find you a binder.
You're good? Yeah, you may not have it. So,
So it's a few pictures in here because it's all I have.
do you have one that's written out? Which address do you have? She has start. Oh, you have a very small one.
Yeah.
You have a
Right, but he
scraping
has-
of porches.
There's pictures
porch
and
1, porch 2.
Yeah, that one is very small. That's porches. So, there are people that do better with pictures. You know, that's how they do directions easier with pictures. And there are people that do better with reading directions. And we want to provide both because we don't want people to be frustrated or lost, right? So in your packet that I gave you on page 2, you have the exact same directions as you would have in your pictures. It says paint the house and paint the house this color, right? Paint the prime and paint the garage. Take the shutters off the house, either replace with shutters that need to be painted or use the old shutters and paint them. Now we know we have the new shutters. Paint the front door, paint the side door, paint the fascia, paint the trim, whatever, right? It goes on and on. Paint the trim of the side A front door, side B side door, paint the mailbox, paint number sign. So all of those things will be identified in your packet.
Yes.
Okay. Paint awning. So you would look at the awning and look at what color that is. Okay. Any questions? Does it look pretty self-explanatory so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we go to the next tab, which is the safety manual. So more than anything, it's just making sure people aren't doing dumb things. Hey, Barb. Welcome. Awesome. Welcome. Have a seat. Do you have a?
Back to you,
You can have my binder.
right?
We will give you have a seat right there. We will give you a notebook.
Oh, you guys got the good chairs. Hi.
Hi.
Good. I haven't seen you in forever.
All right. So we are in the tab that says inside the notebook says safety manual. That's where we're going right now. And so basically we
I've got
have
a cup holder right here.
a couple of
Barb,
pages,
There's a cup holder attached to your.
Oh, okay.
and there's more drinks up there if you want any.
Oh,
So like the safety manual there is like an overall thing, and then we'll get a little bit into ladders and scaffolding, right? So kind of guidelines for a safe attitude. So basically, we need to just ask people to think before they do something. Most of it is really a lot of common sense.
She's
if
at
there-
the tab that says, there's a tab on the side that says safety manual.
Mhm. You're
Okay.
on tab.
Yeah.
Just making sure you're in the right spot.
that's where I'm at.
4, yeah. So familiarize yourself with where the first aid kit is located and how to get emergency help. So you're gonna need to set that up when you get to your work site. It's not gonna look like a drink bar, but your work site will have a table that's only for emergency, and it'll have this first aid kit. It'll have the first aid box that you put down. It'll have a, did we bring it, Laura?
What?
The CPR thing? Okay, let me find which bin it is.
Black.
They're both there, so I could put this away.
No, that one. Right there.
Yeah, I'm getting it. So this is a CPR kit. This is an eye wash station, and we don't have the first aid kit here. But all you have to do is show people where stuff is and the first aid kit, and then you'll also have another little binder that will have incident, you know, like an incident report if something does happen. We just want to make sure that it's you know, accessible, that everybody knows where stuff is in case there is something that needs to be taken care of. Proper safety equipment. For this, nothing too specific as far as clothing. It's helpful that people do not wear like really loose clothes with like dragging below your rear end sort of thing, because those things get caught on ladders, right? That's just not safe. Everyone needs to wear closed-toed shoes. No sandals, no toes in the air. Anything drops, you could break a toe. Not helpful. So, but you know, steel-toed shoes or anything like that are not necessary. The second thing is everyone does have to wear protective eyewear. We do have safety glasses that will be part of the kit for everyone. Everyone must wear them. People have their own corrective lenses. They can wear them over. We will also have side shields. I forgot about those. We have them. If they can't fit the other glasses over, there's some side shields that we can add to their own glasses. And hard hats will also be available at your site. Okay? They do need to wear the hard hats so that if anything does fall from above them, that it doesn't you know, knock your head. So other things to be aware of are, we don't have power tools on the site for this project, but electrical, you know, electrical lines is what we really have to be aware of. So don't worry about that. Hand tools that you might have on site, you'll have like screwdrivers, things like that, and hammers. Saws you will not have on this work site, so we can kind of skip that. Ladders you will have. You will have step ladders and extension ladders. So here are some general things on ladders. The ladders will have been inspected before you get them, so they should not be broken. Use a ladder that's going to reach the work, right? Don't use a ladder that's going to overreach the work, where you're like trying to fit it under something and then it's like leaning like this, right? Where it's not at the right angle. We will talk about angles also in a moment. So move your ladder with your work. Don't try to like shimmy your ladder. So that's important when you see people like doing things like that. Say, no, hey, we're gonna be like super careful and we're gonna move our ladder, you know. So get down, get up, whatever. Let's help you move the ladder. So an extension ladder needs to be at a 4-to-1 ratio. But what that means is the proper angle for a ladder. So an extension ladder, imagine it being, you know, the bottom of the ladder being where my toes are. If you go like this, you know, you just extend your hands, you're at a proper 4-to-1 ratio. So imagine the ladder crossing your hand like that. That's like the right inclination. If you put a ladder too close like this, you're going to flip back if you're too far up. You will flip back. If you put a ladder too far this way, it'll slip down, and especially if you go too high up, it just slams on the ground. So it's super important, especially the early mornings when there's dew on the ground and stuff, that it's always important that you put the legs have like rubber, or some of them have like little teeth that sink into the ground. Make sure you use those. Don't flip those up and try not to use them. All it does is that your ladder will slip. So you make sure that you're using those. Step ladders, make sure you're using them as step ladders, that they're fully open, right? They're fully open. And then the spreaders, which are those little things that fold, that they're fully pushed down. Because then you know that the ladder's fully open and it's not going to close, it's not going to, right? Other things for ladders is, if the ladder is up, the ladders that we have, they're pretty heavy. We don't buy the really light ladders, but people will be kind of creative and tired, especially the longer they work, and they might want to get to this thing over there, and we'll go like this. You know, the farthest that you should go is like whichever direction you're going, your shoulder, wherever you're reaching, should not leave the center of the rail, right? If you're definitely never leave both rails, because that means you're on your way down. And we have seen probably most of it, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to use a step ladder for things it wasn't meant to do. So even though it's closer to the ground, they aren't meant to be leaned. We do have a few of those ladders that could be leaned, but they'll tell you, you'll see that they look different enough, and they tell you that they could be leaned. They're usually meant to be open. Make sure that they're on stable ground. Whether, you know, when it's a step ladder, make sure that it's stable enough and that they're not going to tip over. If it's an extension ladder, make sure it's stable enough and that when you put it up, it isn't like this, right? You're already starting at a negative. But you'll be able to read a lot about that here. Important also with extension ladders, when you're working near electricity, do not work near electricity, right? 10 feet at least. We only want super experienced people, and we will designate someone to do that. Okay, it'll be someone from our staff that will be doing that, or we will have lines dropped. Okay, so we've yet to create a schedule as to which lines are going to be dropped when, and those sorts of things. Have people like team carry things, especially like extension ladders. The longer ones are heavy. We have some 32 foots, which, you know, you can use from 16 foot up at various stages, but those tend to be pretty heavy. So if you could turn the page where it says step ladders. So if you look at the picture where it says top cap and top step. So top cap and the top step of a 6 foot or an 8 foot. Never use the two top. Never use the top and never use the first step. The reason for that is that when you're on, okay, this is the top cap and this is the first step. When you're here and you lean forward, you're using that for stability on your chin, right? On your shin. And so choose the right ladder. We have a lot of 8 foots that are available. I think we might have some 10 foots and a lot of 6 foots as well. So just tell people, you know, sometimes when you have super young people, they're more stable than most of us on stuff, but still, we want everybody to be safe. So we ask everybody to follow those rules, and it's you know, it's up to us as house leaders to make sure that those rules are being followed. I think we've talked about most of those things. It's helpful if you have someone, you know, like they're going up to paint, if you tell them, you know, help each other. Somebody going up, don't carry the paint, because then they're like everything, right? They have everything with them, especially if they're going up to an extension ladder and they're going higher and they're trying to carry the paint and carry the brush and carry the whatever, right? So help each other so that they can actually get up on the ladder and then be handed whatever painting equipment. Make sure that they know, or that they hear at least, not to place things on the top cap of the step ladders. We have had situations where, you know, someone inadvertently puts up lays a hammer on top, and then you forget to take it off, and then someone goes to move the ladder, crack. And if you're not wearing a hard hat for whatever reason at that moment, so we've had stitches, and quite unpleasant to have the claw of the hammer stuck in your head. If for some reason something happens to a ladder at your site and something gets bent, broken, don't worry about it. Red tag it, get it out of circulation, or say don't use this. Just put a lot of tape around it, you have it, and we will get it out of circulation. We just don't want anyone to take any chances, okay? And you have other specifics there about the extension ladders and the parts of each of the ladders. All of our ladders have anti-slip safety shoes of some kind, whether they're rubber or the grip kind. Make sure that they use them. I have seen ladders that they try to use upside down because they did not know that that's, so you want to make sure, right, that they're using them correctly. It's easier to use a step ladder because you know how those work, but sometimes they don't realize that there are anti-slip shoes. And that if something is wrong with your ladder and you need to ask someone, then you have a picture with things of what you're asking or what you're talking about. You guys have any questions right now?
Just to let you know, there's caution tape in there too.
There is caution tape, so you can use that to tie. That's good. Your site may or may not have scaffolding. That is here. We don't expect you to know how to put scaffolding together. So we will send Liz, who has figured it out before. No, my God. So if there is scaffolding, I think we might try to have it
already assembled.
Assembled at your site, or we will have to come at that morning and assemble it.
If it's already assembled, we'll just show you how to unlock the brakes and push it, and then relock it.
Yeah. There are some sites that will need it, just because it's easier to use than having a bunch of extensions. The extensions are great because they allow for high work, but you have to keep raising them to get to the high work. The nice thing about scaffold is that you have access to a flat wall all the way through. And it just, no one is forced to use it, to do it. It's just those people that feel, sure enough to climb scaffold, and there's rails, security rails, and there's picks and that sort of thing to walk on. So there's basically guardrail, mid-rail, that sort of thing that makes that a safe option for people. Do not allow anybody to play on these things. I do remember a young man a long time ago now, that for him, he was a young man that was very acrobatic, and so for him it was like a playscape. Well, not a good idea, right? So weather conditions do play a part in using any of this equipment, especially because the wet grass. So just use your judgment, right? And the other thing with scaffolding, and I say that I'm kind of crossing it, ladders and extensions and scaffold, right? But for example, a scaffold, when you can have multiple people on it, don't overload it with people, right? We want safety, so like one person or two people per, depending on how wide it is, per level is sufficient. Any questions?
Doing a good job.
You're okay so far? Okay. So some of this, you'll be just able to read. So I want you to take, the next page is an incident report. So let's say something does happen, minor, doesn't need a 911 call or whatever, and even if it does need a 911 call, this is the form, right? Somebody gets caught, somebody whatever. We still need to just fill out the form to make sure that if it does turn into anything more for the person, that we have the person's best interest in mind, and we file for this person's medical to be taken care of. And so that's what this is about. Sometimes people think, oh no, I'm fine, I don't need anything. No, we fill it out anyway. It may be nothing, and that's what we want it to be. We want it to be nothing. But if it turns into anything more, then we want to make sure that you will have what you need, okay? So it's very basic, right? So information about the person, what it was that happened, witness type information, what happened, injured party, if there was destruction of property itself, and that's pretty much it. Okay. The next section is prayer. If you don't necessarily need to pray at your site, they will. So we are a Christian organization. When we gather at the tent, we do begin our day in prayer. We do pray at lunchtime and so on. You can pray if you'd like to. We provide them for you. You don't need to. If you feel like you need prayer yourself, here's something to help center you.
Start that before I leave the house.
Right? It's all good. So there's an emergency action plan that is next. This is some things that might be, like emergency types of things that might not be like the accident of one person. So let's say some of it might be. Let's say oh my gosh, somebody had a heart attack, dropped dead in front of my site, right? Something happened, CPR. So all of our staff is CPR, certified first aid, call 911, call us. If you are not comfortable doing it, you call us. You can scream in your site and say, does anyone know CPR? Okay? And if somebody's on site that does, they can get started. If not, we're only like 2 minutes away. So we will come and we will do that. Okay? First aid. So first aid is very minor, and usually you should be able to find what you need in the first aid on the first aid table. But let's say something happens and you need a meeting point because your people are going to scatter. Like, something happens, there's like a fire or whatever, and you need to tell your people, if anything happens at this site because there's a fire or something like this, we're going to meet at that corner over there. And that's part of maybe your directions in the morning or at the beginning, right? So your muster point, your meeting point is going to be X. Okay? So this is more background for you. So what could be some emergencies? We're living in a weird time. You have questions, ma'am?
Well, I'm thinking it's that time of the year where there's occasionally tornado warnings or something that happen, which, the sirens going off and...
Right. Yes. So the safest place in a tornado, especially if you're at a person's house, you're going to have to be in the person's house. There's no, and we're going to need to let people know that in case there's a tornado, we can't just have people like run out anywhere. We can't have people, especially if it's a last minute thing and it's not like, well, in 35 minutes you're going to have a tornado or in 50 minutes it's coming through Saginaw, right? If it's an immediate thing, we saw something touch down in 5 minutes, or then the homeowner needs to be present, right? Needs to allow us in. But let's take a look at the second page where it says potential of fire, potential of gas leaks and chemical spills. Chemical spills I can't see as a potential. Bomb threats, whatever, I don't know. Medical emergencies, we've talked about a little bit, and that's like basically 911. Somebody's heart stops, I don't know what else. If there's like an anaphylactic shock, you can't really control much about that, like somebody not breathing. Not a whole lot you can do. Call 911. If there's some sort of explosion, that's where your muster point kind of comes into play. You need to get out of where you are. Active shooter training. So that's a very scary thing, but it's unfortunately real world, right?
Yep.
So you need to know. So active shooter. 3 different things. So active shooter, 3 important things with an active shooter. One is if there is any way to call 911 safely, you do that. If there is any way, like let's say it says text me, you don't do that. You call 911 if you can do that. That's your first thing. Protect yourself, right? So the first thing is conceal, hide. The second thing is run if you can do so safely. And so that muster point, you forget about the muster point. And the third thing is, and this is last resort, is acting together to overthrow the person. So how do you do all this, right? Doesn't this sound insane? So when you come in, and we're gonna do a little bit of a sample, right, of what this can look like when you are welcoming folks and not scaring them half to death. Okay? And we'll go over that in a moment. Then the next thing you have, anybody have any questions about that craziness that I just said? No? You're good because we've seen it happen these days, right?
Too much.
Too much.
It's terrible.
But, and so I don't want to ignore it, right?
Yeah.
It is could happen,
Will you be providing a life alert button on every site?
right? No, we don't have those.
Okay, well, thanks for answering my question.
But we do have pepper spray we can provide. So, SDS sheets.
I had a life button, but gave it back.
You gave it back. I'm not that old. So the next thing is called SDS. They're safety data sheets. If there is an emergency because somebody got cough in their eye or some body part, or they ate paint or whatever, and 911 personnel want to see what it is that the recommendation is for the liquid that they have taken in, anything that's on your site that has to do with like the paint supplies or the supplies that they're in here, and they will ask you. It's part of the law that we should include, whether the caulk compound and the type that we have, we need to provide for them in an emergency. If it's caulk that caused it, here it is. So it's back here on your site. And then the last thing in here is the volunteer form. On occasion, you have somebody that comes to work and like their friend or whatever can't come for another hour, right? They'll come a little late, and then they'll just come and join the person at the site. They'll call the person and say, "Where are you?" And they give them the address and they come, but that meant that they skipped orientation. They skipped registration. So if you know that somebody came to your site late, have them register, because then we know who they are and that sort of thing. So, any questions at the moment? Yes, ma'am. Yes, unknown ma'am.
Yeah, sometimes they'll walk away from registration without filling out the paper too. It's not just coming late, but they just don't stop there and fill it out.
Well, that's
So-
a different problem.
No, so I'm just saying, house leaders should ask, did everybody sign in?
Make sure that they're, yeah.
I don't think it means anything.
Okay, and if someone does tell you that that's a good point. So name tags are a piece of duct tape that has their name on it, like with a Sharpie. If you see someone that does not have duct tape with a Sharpie, ask them if they have registered. Because likelihood is that they have not, because we would have duct taped them. Okay. I'm going to ask my lovely assistant, Elizabeth, to come forward to help me set up.
That's me. Impromptu.
Yes, please help me set up for.
I thought you were gonna ask you, Laura.
No, my lovely.
So when you arrive at a site, you have to retrieve your things and set up for the volunteers. This is a tarp, and this is the other tarp.
That's what that is. I
Yeah,
have about
we only
4
have
of them at home.
Oh.
Just didn't know what they were.
Some people are
I know what that red solo cup's for.
I know too. Not what they're using it for.
We have more than one. Drinks.
Isn't it for that ping pong game, whatever it
Is
is?
this the house that I'm gonna be?
No,
No. Oh, okay.
no, those are not your real houses.
Okay.
Barb, I have your t-shirts though. Your t-shirts I have.
My t-shirt.
Your t-shirts.
My nephew made it for me.
Put the yellow tape,
It's
and the
okay.
green tape and blue tape together.
You're okay. You're okay.
It's in that
Oh,
container.
You're okay.
definitely here.
You are okay.
You're up here.
Do
You
not
know,
panic. Do not panic.
It's either the first one or the last one.
these all out, but we want you to know what's in it.
No, I mean,
And it's like a
less
magician's hat.
material.
They're just
Yeah.
stuff, more
There
stuff
is.
keeps coming.
Yeah,
Okay.
Laura's like, oh my god, I put all that
I'm
together.
having a hard pass.
I got all that sitting
Alex,
in my
can you
dining
give
room right
that
now.
to Barb?
I just haven't been able
Thank
to
you.
continue my.
Those are your shirts to wear.
Oh, these are my shirts?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thought you were talking about this shirt.
Okay. No, but I like it.
Yeah,
I do
my
too.
nephew made
Really
a bunch of
like that.
A what? Oh, yeah, I don't think they're here yet.
bed sheet.
Yeah, but not everybody does.
Do they?
That might be the customization part.
Yeah.
Anybody like a drink? They used to be cold, now they're a little room temperature.
Okay.
Yeah, you got this.
All of Laura's hard work.
I know.
And then the
You just throw them
The
out.
roller covers are in here, and these are the small bags for your brushes. Okay, is there anything we're missing? No? Okay, so you probably don't want to put everything out, because if not, everybody will get a clean brush, and you're going to have a hot mess everywhere, right? So you're probably at most going to have 10 to 12 volunteers at once. So you want to cut back your brushes to fit that, but we do want you to know what you have, right? So you're all going to have about 5 1-inch brushes, and these are best for trim, right? For trim around windows or for trim under windows. These are 6. Where are my 2-inch? These are 2-inch brushes. These
They're
are
nice
my
brushes.
favorite. They're called shorties because they have a short handle.
Not everybody has those though.
Some
They'll
have
the
long
longer handle,
handles,
too.
but they're angled, right? Angle sash,
Just cutting in.
right? They're great for cutting in. These are 2.5 inch, and these are flats. They have a flat. Different people prefer different things. So you might want to put, have a combination of like half of stuff out and leave the rest in. And you put your lid on that says house leader only, so that nobody is going into your bin.
Encourage them to reuse until
Right.
the reused brushes go like,
Yeah.
they need to be thrown out.
And some people may end up, they start with a brush and then they want a roller because they think they can do more work with that, fine. But somebody else then needs to use that brush, okay? You have 2.5 inch that are angled, okay, have an angle. So the wider you go on the brush, the heavier your brush, right? So people need to take that into account. We did not give you very much on the 3 and on the 4 because we know hardly anyone ever uses the 4 because when you load them with paint, they are just too heavy. Okay. You have also rollers with roller covers. You have different types or options for your brushes for paint. You have, honestly, the easiest thing, and people think it hardly goes very far. These things are the easiest to hold, so people don't get as tired. You fill them with about that much paint, and these things really do go. They go a long way. But there's also this option,
Especially if you're on a ladder.
yeah. And there's this option, right? It has this thing that you can kind of clean off your brush a bit. So those things. People can also use these. Some people like these things for their paintbrush. But these are really meant for 6-inch rollers, right? They're really thin. And then there's these things for the 9-inch rollers, and these are the liners for them. So if there's paint in them, you don't have to worry about that because there's actual liners that are disposable.
And people do not use the liners in the trays, leave the trays out in the sun to bake so you can peel
We can peel the stuff back. Yeah. So your houses, so some of the houses on in the Covenant area neighborhood have lead, right? Your house will not have wire brushes if they have lead, right? Or we'll let you know this house has lead. Do not scrape. We'll let you know where there is lead. They would have already been scraped before you came.
Okay.
So you do not have to do that. You literally have to prime and paint. Okay? There might be a situation where you need to use some caulk to fill in some holes before you paint so that you're not gawking, like filling it up with paint just to kind of cover a hole. It's called, what we use is called Alex, DAP, Alex, blah, blah, DAP. And basically it dries really fast, especially in the summer, 20 minutes. So you fill it, you come back, it's dry. And so we have a caulk gun for that. We have a few other things that you may or may not need, right? You may not need a hammer, but we have it if you need it. We have always a screwdriver to take down the numbers and things like that. Or if you need to come around the house because there's something else that needs to be taken apart, put it in a bucket or put it in somewhere that we can, find it. I want to stop before we go any further. Do you have any questions? Anything that comes to mind? Pretty self-explanatory, right?
So we would use the blue tape for what and the green tape for what?
So people have different skill levels, right? So I have been at a site where the person was painting the siding and would get it on the window. Then she painted the window and would get it on the siding, and it was a cycle that went on for like 30 minutes. So if you're not good at cutting in, that's what it's for. You tape off the window so that you can do the siding and not get it on the window. And then after it dries, you tape off the siding so you can paint the window and not get it on the siding.
So essentially the paint tape is 2 different widths. So you can figure out the width that works the best for whatever you're trying to tape off.
One's not better than the other.
No.
Right.
It's
now.
supposed to be. But
Well, I mean, for the short term.
yeah. So, and also if you see anything unsafe, a hole or anything like that, use to set it off on your area. You might have some bushes, and we will try to provide what you need to pull the bushes back. There's some families that don't care if the bushes are gone. Some people do care. They just want to pull it back and do it as you can.
You have your string.
The
Yeah.
twine.
So you'll have some twine in your box. You may have a bed sheet, for a particular larger tree or something like that. But remember, you're not doing this by yourself. You have a team of people. Use them. Say, hey, I need help with this. We need to tie this off, that sort of thing. You'll have your particular house before this, so you would have time at home to read the directions for your own house, right? And you can ask me questions. Say, hey, Carmen, this is blah, blah, blah. I don't understand, whatever. You're welcome to also go to that house, and we'll give you the phone number for that homeowner and say, hey, I'm the person assigned to your house. I just wanted to come and look. Can I come and just take a
that's
walk
great.
around the house? Okay? Let's take a walk around this house. Yes, you can.
Okay, the bucket is to put water in case anybody wants to wash their hands or whatever. There's soap over there. There's Clorox wipes here. And you want to talk about the helmets and the homeowners?
Yes, I forgot about that. So you will have, at the site, you will already have the hard hats, right? They will be in a clear bag. At the end of the day, you put them in a darker bag. You have darker bags in your bin. The homeowners will clean them that evening or whatever, and they will put them in a clear bag. the sign that they're now clean for the next day. If we find them again in the dark bag, that means they haven't been cleaned, right? So,
And they've all been told.
Everybody
So every
knows.
homeowner knows. Please clean the hard hats at the end of the day. You might have 6, 8, 10, 12 hard hats. Wipe them inside and out and put them in a clear bag.
Yeah. Everybody knows. So, can't think of anything else right now. Can you?
The signed scope of work.
Oh yes,
Did
the
you
sky.
bring one?
I
Laura?
did bring.
Oh, you brought one for me?
That is one
Sure
that
did.
Thanks for being nice.
So we wanted to show you what the signed scopes of work look like. So, the family has something like this. It says, for example, we did some lead testing on this person's house. We scraped his house because it did have lead. We scraped trim, we scraped the house, not the garage because the garage did not come back hot, right? So now we're going to start here. Prime and paint the house. We're not priming or painting the garage. He's going to replace his garage at some point, so he said don't spend the time. Prime and paint the soffit and fascia. Then paint the trim of the house. Forget the doors. Then over here, all these things are no's. He doesn't have repairing a wood fence. He doesn't have staining a deck. He doesn't, so we can't change the scope. He can't go back and say, hey, I want you to stain my deck. Because you already signed off saying you don't want your doors painted, you don't want your garage painted, you don't want your deck stained. It says nailing siding in place. So he knows he needs that. That's part of what he checked off. Make sense? Mm-hmm. And then he chose colors. Okay, so this is the body of the color of the body of the house, the color of the trim, the color of, it says back storm door, doesn't need paint, going to repair. So whatever it is written on, and they've signed it, and they know this is what it says. I've freely chosen the colors. I've freely chosen the colors to be applied to my house. I realize that once I've signed this sheet, I can't change them. Basically, we've ordered the paint, right? Furthermore, I also can't change my mind when the colors have been applied. We've had that. And then a little bit about paying it forward, which is helping us, by being present or helping us whatever way they can. So that's kind of, and this will also be in your binder so that you know what they signed. Make sure that it matches what we've put together for you as far as directions. Okay?
Carmen, even if they say that they have the paint.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
will
even
you
if they,
repair-
but I already have this for you. It wouldn't take very much. Call Liz. Oh, but my boss would be really angry at me. Let me call her, Liz. Just say, it's just some rules with Habitat. Let me call Liz. She'll come and talk with you. And if she says it's okay, it's not, you can throw Liz under the bus.
If anybody sees here that they want more of something, please just let me know and
Yeah,
we can
or if there is
readjust.
something, sometimes we'll, we have as many things as we can think of. And you get there and somebody says, I would like blah, blah, call Laura because it might be that we have it, or it might be that we don't. Or I'd like to paint with X, Y, Z. Well, we never thought about that, but she might have it and might make it happen. Okay?
She is the go-to person in the binder to call if you need the paint or you need the hardware or the brush bags or loppers, anything that's here that you're like, man, I need more of that. Laura's your person.
Yeah. Because it might be that everybody chose to do the work with that one same thing, which you didn't plan on, right? Or everybody wanted, and the other thing, okay, so let's take a look at this house, right? So let's say this is your house, and let's pretend it's not painted, part of it isn't painted. So part of what's helpful is that for you to think of, how do I organize people, right? Let's say I have 10 or 12 people. Let's say this one's gonna have 12. Well, let's say I put one person it's nice for people to talk to each other. We encourage you to do that. But let's first have a plan as to how we're going to organize so we can get this house painted, right? So one person on the front porch. How about one person for this section right here, right? Remember that someone else is going to do that peak, right? So maybe you have somebody that's on an extension and they can do that far, but they're not going to be on, you do not allow them on that roof. Okay? Not on that roof. So they're doing this
So
far.
let's walk with Carmen.
Come with me. let's come with me. So you have one person there, and maybe it's feasible that another person does this one. Maybe the next person starts here. You know, kind of think of how would I plan for people. Now we've got one person, two person, another person starts here, and they're going this far, and now I have this wall. How am I going to get this wall painted? Well, if I have two people up high and I have two people down low, we can get this wall painted, right? So somebody keeping track how many people we have so far? So let's say we have
Two here.
two there.
One here,
Now we got
one
four
here.
here. So we got 6 people-ish, more or less. Let's see what we got in the back. Oh, now we got another side here. And we have the same situation, kind of. So, but maybe one person can do this, right? So 7, but we got some area here that maybe when somebody finishes in the back can do this one. Depends on how many people you have. Maybe this is just like one person.
Is this being painted all the way to the top?
Yeah. Yep. So, but let's say that this person does the lower stuff and you have somebody that's doing higher work, right? Use the person in the front maybe to do that. Let's see what we have here. So 7, maybe 2 people here. 9, but whoever is working here, notice where is that electrical coming in, right? You want to stop probably where that white little box is. Say, hey, I only want you to paint to the white box. The rest of it, Habitat will do. Does that make sense to you, Alex?
Yep.
Okay. Because we don't want anybody zapped. We want to make sure that you leave with your hair as you can. So now we are at 11 people. And that seems feasible. And you're going to probably see they're going to paint a lot faster than you thought, right? So before we go to the other side, I want to talk a moment about painting. So people can choose to do this in a couple of ways. They might like to roll because this is wide siding, or they might like to brush. It doesn't matter to us how they do it. However, if you look underneath, there's these lips that are about 1/2 inch. They have to make sure that they brush the bottom, right? And you as house leader, you want to look to make sure that they're not leaving anything unpainted, right? Or the sides, you want to make sure that you're quality control, or that you help, point someone else out and, hey, I need you to be quality control with me. Let's make sure that we're covering everything up. Most houses will need at least 2 coats, okay? This house will not allow us to go through that way, so we have to go around the front and on the other side.
Carmen,
Yeah.
just want you to identify. You said something earlier about knowing which is electric and which is cable. Is any of that back here?
I don't think there's
Okay.
any cable in this house.
I think that's all electric.
That's an electric mast right there. So houses will have like this where they go straight to that, and the house next door. Yeah, this is. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't see where it goes. But this thing right here, it's coming off the post, but this is an electric mast.
Okay. So right here is electric mass too because it's coming off the pole.
You gotta see where it goes in the house. So a mast is actually a pole like that, and this is an electric line heading right into the house.
Okay.
This is the electric. That is electric, heading right into the peak of the back of the house. And you see where it goes, right?
Yeah.
You see it goes straight down to the bottom.
Okay.
And this is in excellent condition, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to zap you. If you look at what's coming off the electrical box, and it's frayed, and it looks like it's cloth, and you can kind of see through it, stay away. Tell people, call Liz, call me, whatever. We should have had it marked off before you get there, but we want to make sure that it's safe. And before we paint it, we'll make sure the electric is dropped or stopped.
So you're saying you want a coat of primer and then a coat of paint, or this is your paint with primer?
The paint will have primer in it,
Oh.
so you'll have some houses will have paint primer separate from paint,
Okay.
because sometimes you need a special product. Like this house, what would be considered trim, and this house would be this bottom, and would be this inside, and would be this. Do not paint the window itself. Okay. Do not paint. So your house will say whether we're painting the foundation or not. So this is called nudo. It's just like a plastic fiberglassy thing or whatever. Don't paint it, because what happens is we create maintenance where maintenance wasn't an issue before. So we will not usually paint vinyl. We will paint wood, cedar, asbestos, shingle type, siding. We will paint, I forget what other types of siding there are, cinder block, but we will not paint vinyl because it shrinks and expands with the winter and summer, and so it just eventually peels. And so you made it look prettier, but then we created a maintenance issue. There is one house where we will paint the skirt of the front porch with it's vinyl, because it's just going to look really bad with the rest of the house, but it's only in that front section. And your directions will say it. I think, is there something I missed? So we were at 9 people, or no, we were at 11. Let's look at this side. We were at 11. Let's look at this side of the house. So this side of the house is pretty small. Yeah. Oh yeah. So 2 or 3 people would do. Yeah. 2, 3 people at most. So you were at 11. So 13 people max should do it for this house. Right? So that's kind of like when you're thinking of, instead of letting people just go because they'll like pull friends or whatever and they're talking and they're painting, but then you're like, oh my god, this house is never going to get finished because everybody's like, congregated in one spot. But they'll get it. They understand. And then you'll know whether you're painting soffit, that's a flat part. They'll know whether you're painting fascia. They'll know whether you're painting the columns, the support of the columns, or anything like that in a house. So you'll be able to, so let's say you're painting the ceiling of a porch, but you're not painting, you're not painting the porch floor. You need to protect that, right? So we would have provided for you canvas drop cloth. Put it out first, protect that, so that we don't get any paint on it. I honestly have seen someone thinking that, oh, it's good enough for painting your house, and go like this on a brush and put paint all over like their sidewalk. I'm like, what? Sometimes people don't think, right? Sometimes people don't think. So just say, this is this person's home. We want to treat it, we want to treat it well. Think of it, this is their castle. We want to honor it, their space, their sanctuary. Let's make sure that we don't get paint on any of the sidewalks, on any place. If something happens on the grass, well, grass gets cut, right? But we've provided, tarps and things for, to keep paint off things and things like that. So, whatever we can do to make sure to contain stuff would be great. And it should be a good experience. People come excited, they come excited to do work, and it's a fun thing. You will likely get someone to come and support you from our staff. But we might have to run because we have other roles, right? We get a phone call and whoop, we gotta go. So I think we're good at the moment. Any questions? Yay, nay? I have no idea what time it is, but I think I have a